Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. This is Spencer Bonin and Balwinder Marwaha coming together again for another episode of Unlocking You 2.0. And this week we're talking about overcoming your fears. And today's video is specifically about overcoming the fear of failure. We're just going to get right into this. I'm going to pass this right over to you, Bally. Let's talk about it. What's going on here with this fear of failure on the conscious
Absolutely.
side?
There's all sorts of fears, right? And this week, like I said, we've been talking all about fear, and fear of failure is huge. And it's we fail to even try because we're so afraid of failing. And in so many cases, imagine what the world would be like today if people didn't try because they were afraid of failure, right? So let's talk about worst case scenario. What's the absolute worst that can happen if you try something and fail? Now, look, you're learning to ride a bike. What's the worst that can happen? You're gonna fall flat on your face, get some cuts, scratches, bruises. It could happen, right? But
Yeah,
um, you're still going to learn how to ride a bike. Now, most people do know how to ride a bike because they
yeah,
went through that process, right? Now, I know a
right.
few that don't, but um, really, like what's the worst case scenario? So, and this is what you really need to determine and decide for yourself is that, listen, if I do try this, if I go at this, what's the absolute worst that can happen?
Mm,
And whether it's fear of failure, maybe it's like asking someone out on a date, maybe it's relationship stuff, maybe you're even afraid to ask your significant other for something because you're afraid that it may fail or they may reject you. But the question you really need to ask yourself is, what is the worst that's going to happen? And a lot of times when you ask yourself that question, it'll put things into perspective for you. You'll be like, okay, well, the worst that could happen is I'll still be doing what I'm doing now.
mm.
Or the worst that could happen is I may spend some money, but you know what? Money is disposable. It can be made, you can make more. There's an unlimited amount of it in the world. There's
Hmm.
no limited amount, right? But there is a limited amount of time. So if you're going to keep waiting to fail or even trying, you're going to run out of time.
Yeah.
So, uh, and not in the sense you're not waiting to fail, but you're waiting because you're afraid of failing, and then you don't do this, right? So here's something I want to throw at you and really think about on the conscious side is that if you're afraid of failure and you ask yourself, hey, what's the worst thing that can happen? Tie time, make it time sensitive, and add time into the equation and say, hey, the worst thing that could happen to me, is that an hour? Is that going to make a difference for 2 hours? Is that going to make a difference for a month? Is it going to make a difference for 2 months?
Mm.
How much of my life will be impacted if I fail? And then reverse that and say, how much of my life will be impacted if I don't even try?
Mm.
So with that said, that takes it on the conscious side. Spencer, what happens on the subconscious side? What's this? What if what's the worst that can happen?
Well, and the thing is, and thank you so much for that. It's all about like the things that are kind of trapped inside, from previous experiences, maybe inherited, maybe absorbed. And on this particular section, there might be an inherited trapped emotion of fear. There might be an inherited trapped emotion of failure, or just a regular trapped emotion of failure from that one time you failed a project in school or something. I don't know. It could be literally anything. You might feel lost, like you don't know what direction to go. You might be
Mhm.
confused. You might be discouraged. You might have these trap. These are all specific frequencies and specific emotions
Yeah.
in the emotion code, by the way, or even this trapped emotion of overwhelmed. And either one of them, if they're inherited, absorbed, your own experiences, if they're stuck somewhere in the body, your body has an automatic response to start to vibrate in that frequency, and you're just going to kind of by default going to start to vibrate in that frequency when you start thinking about that whole thing. And it's or getting into wherever you're wanting to go, that fear is just automatically going to start to go. And consciously you can definitely work that down, but you can clear these emotions to help it
Hmm.
yourself propel yourself even further. Instead of walking, you're now flying. so
Yeah.
so that's the thing on the subconscious there. Now, what else is going on with this fear of failure, Valley?
And, and Spencer, I just want to add to that because what you said is so powerful is that I'm going to share something with everyone right now quickly is that since I was 17 years old, I've wanted to be a motivator. I've wanted to do public speaking. I've wanted to engage with people. I've wanted to help people become the best version of themselves.
Mm.
Um, and I even started doing this at a very young age. I used to go into high schools after I graduated from high school myself. I had a lot of success at a young age with business. So I would go into high schools and I would talk to students about success and goal setting and things like that because it wasn't taught in school.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then as we go through life, we experience some failures, things happen. I started to get these trapped emotions you're talking about. And it wasn't until I started working with you, Spencer, that I had a huge transformation and a huge shift.
Mm.
And I would come up with plan after plan after plan. And I would have these business ideas or plans or know what I wanted to do, but they would just sit and they
Mm.
would just sit. And I wouldn't act on them because I was afraid of failing.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I had these sessions done and I had this work done from you, Spencer, which
Mm.
started about, just over a year ago,
Yeah.
that I really had the strength and the courage to go through and say, look, I've got this plan. I'm going to follow through with it. And now it's, gone to a whole new level. We're changing lives of people all over the world. It's so exciting, Spencer, working together with you. So
Yeah.
I'm really honored and thank you for everything you've done because where we are today is because of those treatments and those releasing those trapped emotions with the emotion code. So
Well, thank you.
that's huge. So now you said what's next or what else, right? So
Yeah.
um, let's just hypothetically say, okay, you know what? You get over it. You say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try. I was, what's the worst that can happen? You've gone through that scenario. You've released some trapped emotions. You actually try. And now what? What if you fail? What if you actually do fail? That's possible. It happens.
You
In
fail.
fact, yes. In fact, I'm going to share a couple of things with you. One of my favorite quotes by Wayne Gretzky is, "You will miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
Classic.
Right. So, here's the thing: is you're going to take shots. You want to think of like any sport. Uh, if athletes were afraid of hitting the net, they're like, oh, what if I take the shot and it doesn't hit the net? They're not going to not try. They're going to take. They're going to take that shot. They're
Oh,
going to
for
try
sure.
to put the basket in the hoop, the ball in the hoop, or they're going to shoot that puck and get it in the net. And they're not going to get it in every time,
Yeah.
but they're not going to stop trying. So you may fail. You look at Colonel Sanders. You look at his story. You look at how many times did he have to fail? How many times did he have to take his recipe to so many places and be heard no, no, no,
Yeah.
before somebody actually or something fruitful happened, right? So
Yeah.
look, everyone in this world that's amounted to anything has failed, and
Mm.
failing is the step. It's a stepping stone. You can't get to the top of a ladder without taking the steps to that
Mm.
top of the ladder. You don't just jump to the top ring. Um, you have to go on each rung or ring and get your way to the top.
Yeah.
So when you fail, you're growing. It's experience. It's helping you know what can you improve on and what can you do better. Now, if along that journey you do fail and you trap some emotions, that's where Spencer comes in and says, "Hey, let me just take those emotions out, and
Yeah.
you go and try again."
That's
Um,
right. That's right.
but the thing is if you're not gonna even try, because first you're like, okay, what's the worst case scenario, or like, what if I fail? Failing is part of life,
Mm.
and that's in anything. You're going to fail, and failing is good. It's an absolute good thing because it means you attempted something.
Mm.
Now, Spencer, subconsciously, when we attempt something and fail, or maybe we don't even attempt it because we're afraid that we might fail, what is it that holds us back?
Absolutely. Now, one exactly what you just said, and thank you so much for saying that. One of my, I don't know if it's a quote or just a saying or whatever it is. It's instead of looking at it as failure, I look at it as you're either succeeding or you're learning. There is no failure, right? It's
Yeah,
if you're
excellent.
failing, you're just learning something that you didn't know before at using that as the stepping stone that you're talking about.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I want to say there. And absolutely. Now, in the back end, you might actually have some other things. We've talked about these before. Post-hypnotic suggestions or despair anchors. They use the same chart. They're very, very similar. A
Mhm.
post-hypnotic suggestion is almost something that's been kind of like implanted through quote hypnosis and suggestion through other people, forms of media, whatever it is. But a despair
Mhm.
anchor is kind of like the same kind of negative statement, but it's something that you've almost programmed yourself due to negative self-talk. And with these two different statements, they're something that your mind is kind of focused on and really tries to seek to fulfill it. And you might have these statements in there where your mind's just on autopilot trying to seek to fulfill these things, and
Mhm.
of something like I ruin everything. That's not very great. You maybe have something that says it's pointless to try. Just like what you were saying, like, oh, what if I don't even want to try? Well, maybe you have that little statement stuck in your head somewhere. Nothing works out for me.
Mhm.
If you automatically have this negative subconscious belief that nothing works out for me anyways, well,
Yeah.
even if you do try, maybe nothing is going to work out anyway. You know what I mean? So, or nothing turns out right. They're very, very similar, in a
Mhm.
different, so you might have these things lingering in the background subconsciously that either attract kind of the negative aspect, but kind of attract you
Yeah.
to the negative outlook of it, to be like, oh, well, that was a complete failure instead of that was a learning experience. So if you
Yes.
have these energies in there, or even if you, by me talking about these different things, if that makes you cringe, because I remember when I was talking about what I was going to talk about with you, Bally, and you were like, oh, just hearing those things like made
Yeah.
me just
Well,
like
I'll tell
bring the
you,
energy down.
and here's, I'm just gonna say this. One of the statements you said,
Yeah.
my head automatically nodded, and I'm like, whoa, wait, where did that nod come from? Like, obviously that rang the bell with me. So we need to do a session.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, well, and exactly. Like if you notice that, exactly what you said, I need to do a session. So if that's something that you're resonating with, you're finding your head bobbing, you're cringing a little bit, that probably resonates with you in some way, and that could be a good indicator that it's there. So if that's the
Mhm.
case, connect with us. We'll test it for you. We'll release it for
Yeah.
you. We'll do a complimentary session on you. We'll see what we can do to help relieve a little bit of that going forward. But like this is the solution, is we can
Yeah.
release these energies from you. So with that, is there anything else you'd like to add, Bally?
I would just say that, look, the only time you're failing is if you fail to try. All right, just let that sink in. The only time you're failing is when you fail to try. Every other time, as Spencer said, it's a learning opportunity, it's success, or it's education, whatever you want to call it. So,
Mm,
um, I will say this: that listen, fear of failure is huge, and consciously you can do absolutely everything in the world to try to overcome it. But until you haven't released this emotional baggage, it will definitely hold you back. So connect with us. We'll help you figure out what it is. What's holding you back? Why are you afraid of trying? There's
yeah.
two ways to connect with us. Number one, check out our website, insideoutcoachingprogram.com. There's a couple of awesome videos there that you can watch about what we do and how we combine the conscious coaching and the subconscious energy healing, that removing of the emotional baggage that you've been carrying all your life. It's never too late to start. And then the next way, and I'm so excited about this because tomorrow night we're having a webinar. I was just checking registration and we're actually pretty close to full. So you
Mm,
want to get on there and register as soon as possible.
yeah.
Um, www.2020recoverymanual.com. 2020 has been rough. In fact, almost over 100 years since we've had a pandemic like this. And so let's put it behind us. Let's make the rest of this year, about 3 months left. Let's make it the best ever. And you might think 3 months is not a long time, but let me tell you, 3 months will change your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Get on this webinar. We'll tell you and teach you how to do that. And not only that, change the rest of your life. With that said, thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow with another way of overcoming your fears. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.